A 10-inch saw blade, one that may have 80 sharp teeth and that is probably running at 3,400 revolutions per minute or more, is a very effective and useful tool. But it is also a tool with which we must use great care. At 3,400 RPM, the teeth of the blade are going very fast, at a speed of over 100 miles per hour. Any contact between such a blade and your body is not going to be a good thing. This program has been produced to provide all our employees with some key tips about how to work with this tool in a way in which you will not get hurt. First and foremost, before you start working with a saw or with any powered equipment, make sure you are not distracted or upset, or trying to carry on a conversation when you're working. It is most important that you have both your eyes and mind focused on your work and not on things that will distract you from applying safe practices to your work. If you are upset or distracted, step away from your work for a few minutes. And as with any tool, routers, planers, knives, or saws, make sure you have a sharp blade. Dull blades not only damage product, but they present a much higher chance of injury. To operate the saw, position yourself properly. Make sure that your work area is free of significant debris, that you have good footing, that you are wearing non-slip footwear, and that you position your body so that it's not in line with the blade. You should always have on your goggles, and wearing earplugs is strongly recommended. You should not be wearing gloves, loose clothing, or dangling jewelry that could get caught in the blade. Before you start using a table saw, you should also make sure that the work surface is smooth and free of debris, that the guard is in place, and that the rip fence is positioned properly, parallel with the blade and secured in place. You should never make a freehand cut on a table saw. The stock must be guided through the blade either by a rip fence or a miter gauge. Check that the throat plate is in place and not damaged. The height of the blade should be set just slightly higher than the stock being cut. Always check the stock to make sure there are no nails, screws, barbed wire, etc. in the wood. As you guide the stock through the blade, use a push bar. Should there be a kickback, using a push bar will provide several inches of additional distance between your hand and the blade, which will almost always prevent your hand from coming into contact with the blade. Let the blade bite the push bar, not your hand. Do not push the material through the blade too fast, and don't release the stock being cut until it's gone past the blade. Don't ever remove a scrap piece until the blade is stopped. And don't ever reach behind or over the blade until the blade has completely stopped. If you need to change the blade height, always wait until the blade has completely stopped. As with any tool you use, you should get very familiar with the saws you use. Some of our saws do not have electric brakes, and it can take a long time for the blade to stop. Should you need to change the blade, you must unplug the saw or lock it out if it's hardwired. You may not work with a table saw or circular saw, but the principles are also applicable when operating other saws, such as a panel saw, radial arm saw, chop saw, or a band saw. Don't operate the saw if you are upset, distracted, or having a conversation. Don't operate a saw that has a dull blade. Keep your work area free of significant debris. Make sure you have a solid footing and position yourself not in line with the saw blade. Don't wear gloves, loose clothing, or dangling jewelry. Make sure the base is smooth and free of debris, that the guard is in place, and that all guides are in good condition and secured. Check the stock to make sure it doesn't include any nails, screws, or other material that will interfere with a smooth cut or cause a kickback. Use a push bar, and don't try to cut faster than the saw will allow. Don't reach to remove a good piece or the scrap piece until the blade has completely stopped. Don't adjust the blade height or angle until the blade has completely stopped. And don't replace the blade without isolating the saw from the power source, either by unplugging it or by locking it out. If you consistently apply these principles, you should be able to work with a saw for many, many years without an injury.